Welcome back to episode 19 of The Shifting Focus. We have Devon Webster in the house today. She is a woman that holds many titles. And as you said, not a single one of those define you as a whole. So why don't we jump in? Tell us a little bit about each of the roles you play and what you're doing these days.
Thanks for having me, guys. I am really a regular person, so I'm excited to be on a podcast because I feel like more regular people should be here.
True.
I am mostly a stay-at-home parent. We have 2 little kids. My husband is a helicopter pilot with the Navy, so his hours are crazy, and it's great to have a parent home with the kids. I also work part-time while our youngest is in preschool. I'm a registered behavior technician, so I provide in-home therapy to kids with autism, focusing on behavior management and teaching new skills and good behaviors and getting rid of less desirable behaviors. And then I help with, I run a book club in my neighborhood with my friend. I help with the spouse club. I have a couple other hobbies. I like to dance. So
What kind of dance?
West Coast swing.
Oh, wow. Does Garrett do it with you?
He does not.
Okay.
He does not. No, especially if he were to do it with me, it would be even harder to do because, these pesky little children need to be watched by people. So yeah, I started learning West Coast swing when I was in college, and then I stopped when I was adulting for a while, and I just got back into it a couple of years ago. But it's super fun. It's a really flexible dance, and it's got a really great sense of community. So
We need to get into dance. We've been talking about it for probably like 10 years, about doing dance lessons together, and we just haven't done it.
Well, maybe Devon can bring us onto her dance studio.
West Coast swing is great. I would recommend it. It's to modern music usually. It can also be to like jazzy or old stuff. But it can also, it's really cool because you can mix in a lot of different dance styles. So if you were to see like professionals doing West Coast swing, you wouldn't really be able to tell what style of dance they're doing because it can look really different from person to person.
Take us back. How long were you a teacher?
I was a teacher for 2 years. Okay. So, we got married. My husband and I got married right out of college. We're high school sweethearts.
Oh.
So,
cute.
Yeah, we started dating when we were 15, and then we dated all through college, and we got married like a month or 2 after graduating. And so I taught for 1 year in Charlotte for 4th grade, and I taught a year in Florida, and then we had our son. And so I stayed at home with him, and then we had a second son, and I'm still home. So I'm looking to go back into the classroom in the next couple years.
Are you homeschooling the kids?
I am not. Okay. I would like to homeschool someone else's children. I think I would like to be a governess. If that is still a title, I would be a great governess. No, our kids. So I did, because of when COVID hit, we did a lot of like learning at home preschool kind of stuff, especially with my oldest, because he just ate it up. But now like our oldest is in 1st grade and our youngest is in 4-year-old preschool, and if they didn't fight with each other a lot, I could probably homeschool them. Yeah. But because I have the background to do it, but instead, like we just do learning things at home. So like when our oldest went to 4-year-old preschool, he already knew all his like letter names, letter sounds. That's and cool. Like he's a sponge. He's a natural like student. Yeah.
So whether you're a teacher or not, would you say it helps to kind of almost teach your kids a little at home also? Don't let it just stop at school, because like you said, your kid was almost ahead of the curve and knew what to do when they got there.
I swear just reading to your kids a whole lot will get you really, really far. And I mean, learning is everywhere. Like with my oldest, we did a lot of activities because it was COVID, and like we were at home for his 3-year-old year, like almost the entire time. So we did tons of activities. Like our whole dining room was like an under the sea crafts. Like we had an octopus, we had it like a whale shark, we had all kinds of stuff. And then we moved on to space, and we had all kinds of posters on our wall about like the different layers of the atmosphere, and like we created art for all the planets and talked about that, and like planet size, and just what they're interested in. Like kids want to learn, and they're interested in the world, and there's things all around. Like you're going on a walk and you walk past a police car and you point to the letters on the police car, and you're getting letter exposure there. You're walking up the stairs, you're counting when you go up the stairs. There's learning everywhere. And just like reading a lot of books. They both have really wonderful vocabularies. They have a really long attention span for being read to. I've never we hit a limit before they do. We're like, okay, I'm like too relaxed and sleepy. We have to do something else. And they're like, they can sit there for more.
More.
Yeah. No, they have a great attention span for books.
What kind of books are you reading, or were you reading? Or if moms listening now are wanting to kind of get involved in that, what would be some books that you would recommend?
To the kids, or like books I am personally reading?
To the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the
And then we'll
kids.
get to the book club too, because I'm really curious about that.
I mean, they like books that are funny. So there's like Elephant and Piggy books are really great for kids to read on their own because they're really simple, and like new readers can read them and practice reading with expression, which is fun. So that's something that's been a huge hit with them. They like animal books. Right now we're starting some simple chapter books. So we've been reading some Magic Treehouse books, which they have been enjoying. Trying to think, there's so many. I just bought a book called Mouthful of Minnows for them. We got it from the library a couple times, and it's about an alligator snapping turtle, and like he's like trying to catch a minnow.
It's a perfect Florida book.
There's so many great books out there.
Yeah.
I think I might end up as a librarian sometime in the future.
Hey, would you ever write a book? Write your own kids' books?
No, I've considered it, but I think I'm really illustrations make or break the book, so I would have to think further on it. But there's so much out there, and I have some of my early job stuff in college was really book related. I worked with a summer literacy program for 4 years teaching, and then a few extra years training with it. So I just got a lot of book exposure there. So
You have a lot. It sounds like you have a huge background with education. Was there any point in your career where you said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom? Was that always on the books for you, or were you wanting to maybe focus on the career more, and this is just kind of how your life evolved?
I think a lot of us kind of emulate what we saw. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I mean, I've always known that teaching is not the highest paying thing. So I mean, I always understood the math was never going to be that crazy, but I think I wanted to stay home with them when they were young. So like, I think it was always my intention. Like, so when we had our first, I planned to wait a year and then see, like, so I would stay home the first year and then kind of decide, do I want to go back to teaching, or do I want to stay home until they go to school? And so at that point in time, especially since we were planning on having another child, I'm like, let's just stay home. I started online teaching when our youngest was 6 months old. So it was kind of an in between. So that was really helpful because it wasn't so much of like I was still doing some working. I was still like doing some teaching, bringing in some money. And then there was zero cost for childcare because it was all at like the crack of dawn before he woke up. So
What are some misconceptions that you think society has around stay-at-home moms that you wish you could say, no, you have no idea?
You're like, all she does is stay at home with the kids
Yeah.
instead of like having a job. What's the main thing?
I think it's getting better. I think a lot of people understand more that like it's really challenging sometimes. And I think that it is what you make of it. You can stay home with your kids and not do that much work. Like you can rely on some easy fixes. Like the TV can be on all day. Like you can have a really messy house. And sometimes that's this phase you're in. But you can also make it, you're doing a lot of learning activities, you're doing a lot of play dates. It is work, and it's also, it's your job at that point in time. So like I read parenting books because like that's professional development for the job that I have of being a parent. So I think that why would you know automatically how to parent a child? Like I think a lot of people expect like, oh, it's natural. Like you should just know everything, but you have to seek out information for this new job you have. And I think some people just don't have the time to do that, or kind of expect it would just come naturally. So
That's a good point.
You learn on the job, I'm sure, a lot too on how to be a mom.
and then your other child comes around and needs a different type of mom.
True.
So
yeah. The kids are nothing alike.
you're like, oh, I thought I had this down. Oh, JK, it was just the first one was easier than I thought. Okay.
It's such a good point, man.
Man, the second kids are humbling. I swear.
Because you're like, I got this. It's going to be easier. And then you have your own challenge. I mean, I'm only speaking from an outsider. We don't have kids, so I have no idea.
We just have lots of nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
So for you, is your first a girl or boy?
They're both boys.
They're both boys. And the first is a little more calm and level-headed, and the second one's a crazy one?
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
our nieces and nephews are too.
Wait, aren't you the second child?
Yeah, but I actually was kind of the more normal one.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Me too.
Maybe it's just
You are rather biased
Be
speaking about
yeah.
yourselves.
true.
Right. If
I'm
you ask
so
our parents,
normal.
if you ask our parents, they'd probably say the opposite.
And like in child, like people, that's another fun game you play as a parent. You're like, is this an age thing or is this a personality thing? Like, are you just like gonna hate authority your whole life, or are you a toddler? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, we'll find out, I guess.
I know
in the
it's
teen
just
years.
the waiting game, man.
Are you still a toddler, or are you?
I'm always a toddler.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure. We were talking before we started the podcast because our last artist, one of our artists we had on was, one of our speakers we had on was a tattoo artist. And you were asking if we have tattoos, which we don't. But did you see her? She has 3 beautiful tattoos. And I don't
Break it out.
Whip them out,
They're
girl.
on my arms. It's nothing crazy.
She like gets naked. We're like, whoa. So you were explaining that the different tattoos have come through evolution through what? Break us into this.
Different things that I wanted. So I always wanted a tattoo. I've loved books my whole life, but I was kind of a struggling reader when I was younger. And so the Harry Potter series is one like I grew up with, like the books were coming out when I was younger. And so that kind of helped me have a lifelong love of reading. So my first tattoo was the Deathly Hallows. My second tattoo is a variation of The Giving Tree, which is a book by Shel Silverstein, where the tree gives her whole self away. And at the end, she's a stump, but she's happy. So it's great. But there's an artist, I feel like his name is Topher, but I'd have to double. I feel like it's Topher Payne, but I'd have to double check. But he rewrites the ending of The Giving Tree, where instead she sets a boundary and doesn't give her whole self away. And because she sets a boundary, she can continue being there with the boy. And like they have a life together, and his grandchildren get to experience her as a tree because she didn't give herself away. And so I got this tattoo, not of the stump, because you can't get a whole stump tattoo. I saw that when I was researching.
Could you imagine a stump tattoo?
It's a thing.
I'm sure.
But I got this to remind myself not to give my whole self away, because I don't want to, at the end of this motherhood journey, I don't want to be a stump. I want to I want to be a person. And so that's why I got back into dancing, is because I wanted to have, like, I wanted to still be a whole person and not at the end of this, like, look around and be like, oh gosh, what am I now? And I think that's something that parents need to keep in mind.
Yeah, not to lose yourself entirely. But how do you do that? What would be the balance?
I'm going to stop 1 second. Our
Yeah,
dog
he's-
is never making this much noise, and I'm going to go put him outside.
I don't know why he's being a stinker.
Is that your first dog?
We had a lab together, and he was 15 when he passed. So we're used to the senior
Had an
dog
old
phase.
dog for a while, yeah.
And he was such an angel. Blue's an angel too. He's just,
It's a different kind.
yeah. When he was 6 months, we were his 4th owner. So we've been unpacking some of his trauma and just trying to be patient with him and love him. But he has a bunch of separation anxiety and
Australian Shepherds have a lot of energy. That's probably why.
Yep. We travel in that van a lot. He goes with us everywhere. And so to not be with us, I think we've created a little separation fear for him. But then he also has these, he doesn't do well in closed spaces. Like kennels, forget it. He panics, freaks out, has big accidents. Anyway, he just has a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
So when we got him, it was just trying to decompress a lot of that.
Our dog is the laziest thing ever. I swear. Oh my gosh. I swear he spends 21 hours a day asleep.
Oh, not this one.
Oh man. He's a different breed. So he's
What is he?
An American bully. So
They're so cute.
he's very handsome. But I call him an expensive throw pillow because he tore both his ACLs in his first 2 years of life.
What?
Yes. So during COVID, I'm like wheelbarrow. Garrett's deployed. We have a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old at home. And our dog is recovering from surgery, which is an 8-week recovery, including I am wheelbarrowing him around the backyard because he can't use his back leg. So I have this special padded sling, and I'm holding him up as we go around the backyard, and he's on crate rest. He's an expensive throw pillow.
She has an American bully. She says he sleeps 21 hours of the day.
All day.
Just-
We spent a fortune fixing his legs for him to be.
Tore both of his ACLs.
No. How old?
He's 6, but he tore them both when he was really young. So he tore the first one when he was maybe 1 year old, and then he tore the second one in recovery for the first one. And I the vet had to tell me probably 3 times before I believed him. I'm like, this is a joke. You're punking me. I didn't know the show was still a thing.
Good one.
But this is a joke. He told me 3 times, and then I cried.
That's expensive surgery.
I was because Levi was a 1-month-old baby. I think I was actively nursing him when this vet tells me that my dog is going to have another surgery. I'm like, no, we just did this and I
like,
have a baby.
My bulldog sounds like an NFL athlete. What do you mean? They're like getting all these ACL reconstruction surgeries.
I'm like, he's not done. We followed all the rules. What do you mean? He is. Oh, it was not pleasant news to hear.
Continue.
Where did topic tangent? But yeah,
I like it. Okay, so the Giving Tree you have, and then the one that you just got on the left.
It's just a book and flowers because I like books and flowers.
It's
That's
beautiful.
as direct as you can be about it.
Right?
When someone's like, "What's the meaning behind it?" You're
stuff
like,
that makes
"I
you
like books and
happy."
flowers."
I have a lot of plants in my house. I read a lot of books.
Speaking of plants,
have
you
it?
forgot to bring your plants in here.
Oh, I did.
There's usually
That's all
plants in
right.
there.
Do you have a favorite book? I know that's hard for book people.
I mean, I have like books I've enjoyed recently, but I can't say I have a favorite book. No.
What have you enjoyed recently?
We just read The Mystery of Miss Christie with my book club, and that was really interesting historical fiction about the real life, like 10-day disappearance of Agatha Christie. And so this novelist kind of conjectured what might have happened because it was never really addressed. She was gone, and then she had amnesia and was back.
Who is she?
Agatha Christie, the mystery novelist.
Oh, so she's actually a novelist. She went missing.
Yes.
And
Agatha
then-
Christie is an incredibly famous mystery novelist. Yes.
Really? I don't know if I'm
Yes.
familiar with it.
You probably do.
Okay.
She's an older novelist, but like the classics. And so, yeah, that was when we read. I just read Fourth Wing like everyone else. So
Is that what's the 3-part series that they're doing right now? It's like the I don't remember. I'm trying to think about what they're, but everyone's got them. They're these really thick.
A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Yes. Have you
Yeah.
read those yet?
I have. Yeah. Those are in the same realm, just like really, really popular, like smutty books, basically.
Yeah. You can't put them down. It's like the vampire ones. What were they?
Those were
What
Twilight.
Twilight.
These are a little different, but yeah,
Okay.
this
But
is
they're
a bit evolved. But yeah, I like fantasy things. I like I also there's a genre called like they're described as cozy mysteries.
Oh.
And they're just fun and chill. Yeah, they're just nice. I like to read. I don't like to read that many nonfiction books. I read for fun, so I think that's where a lot of people go wrong if they don't read because they're picking the wrong books.
Mhm, I agree. It was during COVID, I think, when we were traveling so much and I wanted to get into reading again. So we learned about Libby. A girlfriend of mine told me you can sign up online and get a free library card. And then you download this app called Libby and you have a giant plethora of the entire library
Netflix
of
for
audiobooks. Yeah.
Yeah, except it's not the Audible pricing at all. You're
It's
just getting a
free.
free book to read.
It's because I was like, I told her, my girlfriend, I was like, I'm spending so much money on these Audible books and I just, I can't, not that I can't afford it. I was choosing not to invest there. And she was like, download Libby.
Yep, ebooks free. That's where most of my books I read are from the library. I don't find that many books.
Like the real legit good books are on Libby too. You'd
Yeah.
think it'd be like secondhand, whatever, but like, no, everything's there. Just you might have to wait 21 weeks for it if it's like really popular.
The key is if you're in a big library system.
Yes.
So my library card is my OG library card from when I was in kindergarten in Charlotte.
Oh,
And Charlotte has a very big library system.
Yeah. So we tell people sign up in like the biggest city closest to you. So I think we signed up in the Miami one.
We're in Fort Lauderdale.
Is it Fort Lauderdale? So I just finished, It Starts With Us, or it Starts With Us. It's 2 parts.
Yeah.
It was so good. But I waited 36 weeks for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've waited
Her
forever.
I'm
books
still
are
waiting
really
on 'em.
good.
Colleen Hoover.
Yeah,
I
all of her stuff
love.
is really good.
And
I've read several.
She gets good people to read her books too, which really, because somebody who's reading can make or break the entire book.
So true. I don't do that many audiobooks, but I do sometimes because I recently learned that I can understand books audio that I can't read. So I listened to Pride and Prejudice, which I could not successfully read because I would just get kind of lost in the flowery language. And I realized this when we read Frankenstein with my book club, and I tried to read Frankenstein and I just kept getting like bogged down, but I was able to listen to it. So that was an interesting thing that I've learned. I guess my listening comprehension is better than my reading comprehension.
And then you think about the Harry Potter books. I'm sure those are hard because there's so many characters to listen to audibly. It's probably better to read a book like that, right?
I mean, I can't even think about Harry Potter because I know it so well. I've read it like several times, and I know all the characters. So I listen to podcasts analyzing it. They're like, you can't find a surprise for me in Harry Potter. So it's not hard for me.
So did the movies ruin it for you, or did you like the interpretation?
I think they're great. I mean, like nothing's perfect, but I mean, I enjoy them all. I love getting more time in a universe I enjoy. So I mean, like also I grew up with the movies too. So, I mean, I wasn't a judgy adult looking at these movies.
Yeah.
I was a kid seeing one of my favorite books being on the big screen. So
There's nothing worse than reading a really good book and then you watch the movie and you're like, you butchered it.
They change it.
You butchered it.
My first book as a kid, I remember like really enjoying was The Hardy Boys,
Oh, that's
which is a classic for most. But my mom was like so proud of me. Like, you actually read a book? I'm like, yeah. And then they made the movie. So, it was an old movie. So I watched it with, what was his name? Matt Dillon. It was like the lead greaser boy. That was good.
Were you disappointed?
Pull out their knives.
The Greasers. That was one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
But that was the book.
That was
called,
the Hardy
right?
Boys.
The Greasers.
They were the guys were the greasers. It was the Hardy Boys.
I thought it was called The Greasers.
Mm-mm.
Are those two different books, maybe? I don't know. I'm
Or they
asking
just
you,
changed
you're
the
I'm
titles.
thinking of The Outsiders.
The
too.
Outsiders,
I feel like
that's
we
what
might
I'm
be mixing
thinking.
in The Outsiders a little bit.
The Outsider, Greaser, Hardy Boys, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not.
And Harry
familiar
Potter
with the
shows up and like it's like
Yeah, just
no more fighting. Just-
The Outsiders is the book I was thinking about.
I might be the one he was thinking about too.
Yeah. The Outsiders.
I'm gonna do a Google while you guys
All right,
talk
you do
about your
that.
book clubs.
Are you allowing more people into the book club? Are you selective? Is it if people
No.
wanted to join?
Just anyone who wants to come. I started with a friend in my neighborhood, and so it's a lot of people that she knows because she knows more people than me. But yeah, so everyone wants to come. We've got a wide variety of ages because it's a lot of neighborhood people. So there's like older women, women who are our age, like women with young kids. It's fun.
Everybody. And I know we talked before the podcast about how you're trying to make more friends as an adult. Was the book club before this, or was that part of the whole journey to making new friends? Or
It's just, I mean, making new friends is a complex thing. So I know her. She taught my kids. She taught my kids swimming, and that's how I met her. And we live in the same neighborhood, so we see each other sporadically. And she had mentioned wanting to start a book club, and so I followed up with her. And that's what a lot of making new friends is following up with people. So and like allotting time together, like getting more and more hours together, is what builds closeness and friendship. And so I had seen her a couple times, and she had mentioned more than once, "Want to do this?" And so she said that yes. And so I followed up, and I'm like, "Hey, this is what we can do. Let's pick a time. Like, I can help you. We can do this together." And we have a book club now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have the book expert here because
It was The Outsiders.
it's the Outsiders. We both had the wrong title completely.
Not the Greasers.
We were
not the Hardy
describing
Boys.
we were just describing the characters, what they called them, and she's like, the title, I have it.
Oh my gosh. Bless.
Hey, Golden Pony Boy.
Bless.
There we go.
But it was the same book. How funny. We
Yeah.
both loved that book.
That's us just butchering. We're just trying to like throw up themes. And she's like,
It's okay. I'll piece it together for you.
exactly.
We need somebody like you in our lives.
We did the book report, and you're like, is this the
I have
title?
some notes.
Yeah.
We talked about this on one of our podcasts, that it's challenging the older you get to make new friends. Whereas kids, they have this innocence and they walk up and they're like, "You want to be my friend?
They
Cool,
have
let's be
time
friends."
together.
They have time.
They have time together. You probably made friends easily in college as well because you had lots of passive time together. So that's one of the things in making friends is the amount of time you spend together, whether it's like actively chatting or like we're just doing things together. We're at soccer practice together. We're in class together. We have recess together for 30 minutes every day. There's a lot of time you get when you're a child, and it's a lot more regimented. So if you have recess together for 30 minutes every day, that would be, as an adult, having a coffee date like 3 or 4 times
A week,
to get the same amount of time. And that would probably take way more than a week. Like to see a friend 3 or 4 times would take a lot longer. And so that's why friendships are built so much slower when you're adult, because you're not seeing people as much. So
And also, on the same point where she was saying innocence, I've told this story where we went on the boat, and her brother, my nephew is 8. He comes back with like 4 boys, and they're all best friends, and they've met like right, and they're fishing together, wrestling on the beach. I'm like, as adults, we don't have like the innocence to like run up to someone.
you got the reservation.
Want to be my friend? Hey, we'll just go do this. Like, what are you doing?
that.
You walked up to someone, you're like, hey, want to talk? Want to hang out?
Did.
Wow,
Yeah.
so proud.
Like, we need that.
We're desperate, one of the two.
Hi.
I hang out with 2 and 4-year-olds. Can I please have an adult
My
conversation?
2 best friends had moved away. It was COVID. And I mean, you can't it's hard. It was really hard to make friends during COVID. And my 2 closest friends had moved away. One was military and they relocated. The other one, his wife was a doctor and their residency ended. And so I had a bunch of like close friends, and then they were gone. And so I was at the zoo and I saw this person, and she had her kids for like the same age as mine, and they were kind of like together for a second looking at the tiger. And I'm like, oh yeah, our boys look like they're the same age. And she's like, yeah, I have a daughter too who's the same age as my oldest. I'm like, I need to be friends with her.
Please.
I need I need to harvest her. And so I had said like, oh, we should try and get together sometime. And then we both had to chase children. And she turned around and chased me down to get my phone number, which was really great. And so I followed up, and it was COVID. So we had play dates at like the park in the winter several times until we felt like safe enough to like, hey, you guys want to try a house play date? And then she and I did a book club kind of a thing together. I think we were reading some kind of a curriculum for like it was during like all of the race stuff, and so we were trying to educate ourselves more, and so we found a curriculum and we were reading through things together, and so we had like a weekly phone call and just like allotted more time together. And so that's how I became friends with her.
Good for you.
You never know unless you ask, right?
Right.
Just putting yourself out there as an adult's harder.
You do. It is harder. And you have to follow up. So like we could have exchanged phone numbers and then nothing would have ever happened. But I had to be like, you have to follow up like kind of quickly and make a plan. Be like, hey, can you do this then? Otherwise, if you exchange phone numbers, it will die there if you don't take the next step.
Yeah. And we were having this conversation with a girlfriend I met in Norway a few weeks back where it almost takes an effort friend. If neither of you are effort people, it just falls. But one person has to pick up the reins and say, look, we're gonna ride this pony into the sunset. Let's go. But if neither of you are action takers, like
if you want friends, you have to be that person.
You have to be that person.
Like you can't just sit around and be like, I don't have any friends.
Right.
You have to do something about it. It's like the first step, I think, to like getting more friends is accepting that you might have to make all the plans. You might have to always invite the person because and they'll probably say yes and have a great time. That doesn't mean they don't want to be with you or hang out with you or be your friend, but you can't just wait around and hope it's going to happen. You're going to have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Sounds like life in every aspect.
Yeah.
You complain about something like, well, have you done anything to make it better? No.
Well, people make excuses. I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, you have to create the time if it's important enough, right?
Or match the time.
So
it just depends. Like there's different types of friends. And so I think that's other thing you have to decide before you start looking for friends is what kind of a friend are you looking for? Like, do you want a couple friend? Do you want a mom friend where your kids can play together and you can like be casual friends? Do you want like a friend who you're going to text outside of seeing them and like be really close with? Like, what are you looking for? Do you want someone to go out with? Do you want someone to come over to your house and hang out with you? Like, what are you looking for? And you probably have time in your life. Like, do you exercise? Could you go to an exercise class with a person? Do you have a hobby? Could you make a friend with a person who's already there? Like you have time. You just might have to be a little more creative with it.
Prioritize.
That's good advice.
That's the reason you're here is because I went to jujitsu and met a guy. We were wrestling with a stranger, found a friend. We're like, want to wrestle? And then
is it Andy or Garrett?
Andy.
Okay.
And then we're finishing class, we're sweaty, laying down. He's like, so where do you live? And then I describe where I live, and he's like, I live right there. And then just one thing led to another. We're neighbors. And then
Andy's very friendly as well.
And then here you are. Exactly.
We love Andy. We've been trying to get him on the podcast forever, but he won't do it.
He's very shy.
He says that, but yet
humble.
he'll wrestle this monster and be friends with him.
Exactly.
Very different. Andy was the best man at our wedding.
Get out
That close.
there.
Him and Garrett were roommates in college.
And they were stationed down. Oh, that's right. He did say that. And then they were stationed down here together just randomly, or was that intentional?
No.
They're not even near.
An hour. It's not far.
Yeah, they're definitely different bases, different branches. So it was not intentional. It was just like, hooray. Like when we got moved down here, that was one of the nice things about it. We were hoping for a different spot. But we're like, hey, we're going to be close to Andy, so that'll be cool.
And now he's leaving us. That stinker.
It happens.
I hate it. See, this is where I don't know if I could be a military spouse, obviously, because I'm not married to military.
This will segue right in.
Yeah, because I feel like I get really attached to people. Like if you're my friend forever. Like I'm an effort friend. I'll put in the time. I'll put in the energy. I'm not stage 5 clinger. You are my friend. So when people leave, I'm like, no, don't leave. I love you so much. Anyway, so now we've just gotten to really bond with Andy over the last few months and he's leaving. So
It's hard. Some
how do
people,
you
I think,
deal with that as a
I think
military
some people who are locals in military areas kind of have reservations about that. They're like, oh, I'm going to get hurt. Like this person's going to leave me.
Creating like an internal issue with your relationship skills. You're like,
they're
not
just
too
like,
close.
I know
I'm
this
going to leave
person's
soon.
going to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, how do you, it's just the life. And I think like when people say like to spouses, like, thank you for like what you do, like they don't know what they're saying thank you for. They think they're saying thank you for like, your husband's gone sometimes. That's hard. Like you're saying thank you for a lot of different things. You're saying thank you for like putting your career on hold because a lot of military spouses are unemployed or underemployed. Like you're saying thank you for like missing anniversaries, missing your kid's first birthday. Like you're saying thank you for, you're gone not just on deployment, all the workups before that. It's not like this 1, 4 or 6 month thing. It's all of the months ahead of time where you're missing like 10 days out of the month. Like it's more than people realize. It's you get settled somewhere and then you move. So like it takes a while to get the time in to have close friends, and then you're going to move and you don't know where it's going to beat you. It's living far from family, and maybe that's not how you imagined your life to be. That's what you're saying thank you for. It's not just that your partner's gone sometimes. There's also like sacrifices you made in your life, and like how you thought you'd live your life are going to be different because the person you fell in love with when you were 15, maybe you didn't sign up for it all the way. It's not like, oh, you chose someone in the military. Like, no, I chose this person wasn't in the military when I picked him.
Yeah. Was his path always to go into the military, or was that something he decided later?
I mean, do you believe any 16-year-old when they say they're going to do something? Like
No.
a lot of them are going to be sports people. A lot of them are going to be YouTube stars. A lot of
Firemen.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that like, I mean, he had said that's what he wanted, but I was also 16. I didn't know the realities of what that was like. So, I mean, he intended to be in the military, but he also was going to be a marine biologist and changed his mind on that one. So it changed. I mean, like pilot came out of nowhere later on. I'm like,
Can we brag about him a little bit?
He's super cool. Yeah.
He's super cool.
He's super cool. I mean, obviously I'm a fan.
Yeah. We had no idea. He was like, yeah, I'm a helicopter pilot for the Navy. I'm like, okay, what else? And then he starts diving in. And
Y'all, he thinks he's not interesting. Like
he's fascinating.
I'm trying to convince him otherwise.
And we told him, we're like, you should be on the podcast. He's like, you know who would be great on the podcast? My wife. And then we talked to you. I'm like, oh, she'd be great. Yeah. But he's not just a helicopter pilot. Tell us what he does.
He's an instructor. So Whiting Field is where they train helicopter pilots. So for the Navy, and you gotta think like drivers. So when you become a pilot, it's kind of like getting a master's degree in flying. You have a lot of studying, like eat a textbook, spit out the textbook. Like that is exactly how you have a ton of like lots of public speaking actually. So you're like giving presentations all the time in front of your instructors to show that you know what you're doing. So you get to get in the aircraft. And you know, he teaches people how to fly. It's not a driver's ed instructing because obviously it's a lot more dangerous, but that's the main thing. And that's not their only job. They also have ground jobs and things they do, which they love to rotate all the time. So you'd think they'd stay in one job for a long time. Nope. They rotate them every like maybe 6 to 8 months. They switch around the job. So he's not just teaching people how to fly. And then also he does jujitsu, which is where you go.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So
But the driver's ed part is interesting. Are you going to talk about
I
that
was going to dive into that, considering it's not that he's at actual war right now, but his life is on the line every day because there's a rookie that he's teaching how to fly a bird in the sky, and he's just there with another wheel being like, all right, let's go up in the sky. How is it scary knowing that every day he's kind of like just playing with death up there with a random dude who doesn't know how to fly?
I try not to think about it.
Thanks a lot, David. That's what I think
That was my first thought when he told us what he did. I was like, wait, so when you're in the sky, like they don't know what they're doing? He's like, I'm teaching them all.
Yeah. And
I mean, I honestly, I don't worry about it that much. I don't know why. It's just never been something that I struggled with, and I'm thankful for it because that would be stressful.
True.
But
he's really good at what he does.
yeah, I mean, and like like I said, they teach them well. Like there's a lot of things, like if you are trying to brief and you don't know what you're talking about, like you're not going up. If the conditions are bad, like you're not going up. And there's two people flying. It's like that's how it works with helicopters. And so like he's always there to fix something. So I mean, he's got a good track record. He's doing great.
Yeah,
We
as long
asked
as there's
him-
that second wheel, you're good.
Yeah.
We asked him at one point, have there ever been any scary moments? And I don't know if you've asked him, I'm sure you have, but he said there's only been 2 and the thousands and thousands of days he's been up there. But he says he's had to like take over the helicopter and like, don't touch anything. But that's how people learn. You have to mess up to learn. That's a big thing that we say. So what an honor it is for him to teach the young men how to be pilots in these helicopters and women. Yeah.
American soldiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Not this Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl before that was an entirely female flyover.
That's right.
What?
Yeah. We actually
After
knew one of the pilots.
Best national anthem ever. Chris Stapleton and the full woman flight right over the top.
We knew
right?
one of the pilots. She had been, she and Garrett had lived together before I moved down here.
That's cool.
So yeah, the flight community is kind of small. So
Really?
yeah, you know a lot of them.
Realize it's a small world.
Yeah, it just the overlap of like, I mean, like the degrees of separation is like 6 for the world. It's probably like 3 or less for pilots. And to be like, oh, I know this guy. Oh yeah, you guys were in flight school together. Like, oh yeah, he was in my squadron. Like, oh, you guys were at the Naval Academy together. Yeah, now he's my buddy. Like,
yeah, and especially I'm sure like the odds of them being in the same city of someone that he went to training with is probably pretty high, right? Because
there's not
they all
that many
spread out
places helicopters live. Like, yeah, like there's, I mean, it's not like, oh, you could go anywhere in the world. It's like, this is where the helicopters live. You're going to go to one of those places.
San Diego, Eglin, or I mean,
San Diego, Pensacola, Norfolk.
And then that's where all the
Jacksonville.
cool flight events are, like the Blue Angels and stuff. So
Yep.
awesome.
That is really cool.
Has he had to been deployed since you ever been together?
Twice, yeah.
What are the emotions in that when you get that
They were
conversation?
Both COVID deployments, so they were rather lame.
The opposite of what we're thinking.
You think they were going to be good? What were you thinking? Like, oh, yeah, I love
lame.
deployments. No, deployments are lame.
Yeah, but then you're at home with your kids all day. You don't get a break through. I don't know. You probably had more during COVID because the kids couldn't go to school, and was it harder on you?
Both of us. So one of his deployments was at sea, and like since it was COVID, they didn't touch land for 6 months, which is not normal. Like usually they have stops, and that didn't happen. So that was like a super low morale for them. Our kids were really little, so like he left. Like we had a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. It's like our kids were really little. Our dog would just undergone surgery. It was pretty hard. Looking back at it now, like looking at pictures and stuff, I can see. I'm like, wow, I wasn't doing that great. Like, and I compensated by over functioning. So like I was doing like a jillion learning activities with my kids. Like we were doing we were going on walks. We had posters up in the house. I'm wheelbarrowing around my dog. Like we're just over functioning over here. But yeah, and then his other deployment was in Bahrain. So it was land based, which was better because when you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean, your phone doesn't work. Like there is no texting. Like your email is sporadic. It's which is in this day and age very odd. Like it's very different. I think back when I'm reading older books and they like write letters and that's all you have, how wildly different that is from now when like you can call your mom across the country like at the drop of a hat. It's different, and that's an adjustment. Is that you don't hear from them as much. But when he was in Bahrain, there was a huge time difference. But we could still talk like back and forth much more easily. So that one was better. It was a bit of a bougier setup. So I'm like, we got a sleep regression going on over here. Our youngest one learned how to climb out of the crib. I think I'm struggling more than you. So I think this is harder on me than you right now.
You're like, I'm in active war right now with our toddlers.
Man. When he learned how to climb,
I'm getting hit in the face every morning.
Dude, we have this video of him, like he's a ninja even still. Like there's this video of him in like a sleep sack, which is like a baby like sack of stuff, and he climbs out of the crib in the sleep sack and walks like perfectly, not a stumble, over to turn off the sound machine, just like saunters out of the room.
It's like a standing worm just walking around the house.
Hey, he's the type of kid you want to have by your side when you do the potato sack races.
He's already doing army crawls.
Yeah.
He's ready for the military.
He's in the Olympics. It's a future Olympian, I swear.
That is so cool. Speaking of kids, you also touched briefly that you teach English to kids in Mongolia and Asian countries. How did you get involved in that?
So I started teaching for a company called VIP Kid when Ro, our oldest, was 6 months old. And that is a company in China. China no longer accepts American teachers. So that I worked with that program for 4.5, 5 years. And that was a really huge program. They had like their curriculum, a special interface, and it was all one-on-one lessons. A friend of mine who was a teacher recruited me. And so they had tons of people who were teachers, and that was like a side business, or a lot of people who are parents, and that is their like kind of replacement business. But it's perfect because the hours are flipped. So you can teach before your kids are awake or before your partner leaves. And you don't have to have a lot of childcare to make it work. And because it's an at-home position. So that's how I got
the kids
started.
What was the education like in Asian countries compared to the US?
I think like the approach to learning is a little different. Like the kids are all really, really respectful. Like they took things very seriously. But it's a one-on-one lesson. So like there's not a lot of one-on-one education in public schooling. So it's hard to compare. Like it's not apples to apples, because I'm doing one-on-one teaching with those kiddos. Now I teach in a small group setting. But it's still like mostly, I think, like very respectful. Again, they get foreign language introduced way sooner in a lot of other countries than we do here. So they are learning English in schools, and this is more of a practice because a Western accent. Because everyone who has English as a second language speaks it in an accented way, and like the way a person who Chinese is their first language speaks English is going to sound different than the way a person who Spanish is their first language speaks English. And so learning with an American tutor is going to help your accent be more Americanized, which is very desirable.
Do you know why China doesn't want American teachers anymore?
Politics.
Oh, shocker.
Politics.
Shocker.
Yeah, they closed.
Segue into my next question. I'm just kidding.
Don't you dare.
So how many languages do you speak?
Oh, I speak English. I know a little bit of American Sign Language, but that's it.
A little bit of English, but so you're able to teach them even though English isn't their first language?
I speak none of their language. Nope.
Oh.
So
what's the process if someone, like, do they have a translator kind of helping on that end, or?
Usually it's a 2-part program. So there's a classroom thing that's outside of it, and I am their practice. So they would have a classroom component outside with a speaker, with like a teacher who speaks probably both languages.
Okay.
And then this is just really the practicing and drilling. And that, at least at my old program, that's how VIP Kid was. The other one is a little more loosey-goosey.
Loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
What's next for you? How long is your deployment here? And I say your because you're part of it too.
Ours.
Yeah. What's on the books for you on that?
We should be moving later this year. I don't know where we're going yet.
I just told you I'm a stage 5 clinger. Where are you going?
I don't know. It's driving me bonkers. Yeah. It's right now has been really challenging because I don't know where we'll be like this time next year. I don't know where we'll be in the holidays. So like once the calendar year flipped, it's been really like anxiety like for me to not know where we're going to be next. But you just have to wait, and you put in your preferences, and maybe they throw it out the window. Maybe they consider it. Who knows? But we'll find out in April where we're going. Our kids, our youngest is going to kindergarten in the fall. So I'm hoping to, once we're in a place where we're going to live there for more than a couple of years, I want to start teaching again. Teaching is something that changes a lot, school to school, state to state, grade to grade. And so my 2 years of classroom teaching prior to this was 1 year and then a whole different state in another year. And I want to be able to build on something and like to stay in one place and get better at doing the same thing. So I'm not going to go back into the classroom until we're going to be somewhere for a couple of years. So I'm hoping to get back in. I feel called, I feel drawn, I'm ready. But right now I'm waiting for it to match with our family and our timeline.
What would be your preferred grade to teach? Do you have a preference?
I do. I'm hoping to get into kindergarten or first grade.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And your kid will be in kindergarten, so it'll be...
Yeah, I think I'm really passionate about like reading and teaching like good reading foundations. And it's just like that's so important to start off with a strong foundation, to start off with like positive experiences with school. And so that's what most of my experience lies in, like that kindergarten, first and second grade age group. So that's where I think I'll be most successful.
Do you have any advice for parents that are having their kids in that kindergarten, first, second grade on maybe their kid is struggling with reading, things they could be doing at home that maybe don't take a lot of time?
Reading with your kids is really, really powerful, to create a love of reading, and because I mean, if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. But it's a balance. Like it's different for every kid. Like maybe they need a little more practice at home. Maybe they need a break at home and their brains are working really hard and they'll be frustrated and dislike it even more if you practice extra at home. It's always great to work on letter sounds and not just the names of letters and you can do that really casually. You can like look at like what I do with our 4.5-year-old, like on the cover of the book, we'll talk about the letter of like the first letter of several of the words on the cover, and then we'll move on and just read the book. So I would say if they're interested in something, look into it and then read books with them, take them to the library, like watch. I mean, you can also like keep in mind what they're watching, make sure it's quality like programming and not super overwhelming and not all day long. Like you're in charge of these things.
So if they're into dinosaurs, find a book on dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're into space, just make it whatever their interest is instead of bringing in all these outside categories that probably don't even interest them in the first place.
Like forcing them to fall in line.
There's books for different reasons. Like there's books to teach you how to read and there's books to teach you how to love to read. And your kid needs both. So if you're only reading like really simple sound outable books, which you need, like kids need those to practice reading. Like they need like, I can run, I can jump. They need those pattern books. They need those decodable books where they can sound out the words. There's not weird words in there that they can't sound out. Like those are important, but those aren't going to teach you to love reading. They're going to teach you how to read. Also like model to your kids. Like if they never see you reading, then your kid is like 14 and only plays video games. You're like, why does my kid only do this? Like, what do they see?
Learn
Good
behavior in life.
It's, I mean, they're always watching you. So.
It's a great point, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something else I was just going to ask you about the reading part. I can't remember now. Oh, I do remember now. What are your thoughts on homeschool?
Homeschooling's awesome if it's right for you. I mean, I have several friends who homeschool. You're doing a couple of things. I was talking to mom recently. It's her first year homeschooling. She said the first year of homeschooling, you're figuring out how to homeschool. So learning will take place, but like you're learning how to homeschool is the biggest thing. Like the kids are learning how to do something different. The parents learning how to do something different. And there are so many resources out there, and that is not a good thing. It's really, really overwhelming for parents. I mean, for anyone, like anything happens, like there's a 1,000,005 things for teaching sight words, a 1,000,005 things, curriculums available. There's so much, and you can get really bogged down. Like find a couple people who work for you and just, I would say stick with that. Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Like it's simpler than you think. And also like a benefit of homeschooling, it's not the same amount of time. It's not an 8-hour day. Like your homeschooling day is a whole lot shorter. So if that works for your family, like it's really flexible. It's great. But also like you should keep in mind those balances of like being a person outside of that. And so you're like, are you just a teacher and a parent now? Like where is there space for the schooling parent to be a person outside of a caregiver?
Not just a stump.
Yeah.
Not just a stump.
I love that someone in like the education community actually says that and sees both sides, because we're close to someone. And I remember him saying like judging the homeschool aspect, being like, those kids don't turn out normal and yada, yada. And then meanwhile, the same person said, our nieces and nephews are like the greatest kids. And like, they're so sweet and they come up and shake your hand and talk. And I'm like, funny you say that because they're homeschooled. And it's like, oh, really? It's like, it changes everything.
You
You're
have
like,
to be intentional about it. Like you are going to have to seek out opportunities to like put your kids in after school sports, like to make sure they get time with like same age peers. Like you have to do a little bit more about that. But like, there's a lot of really cool things I've seen. Like homeschool families are really great about, different ages. Like they tend to work really well with like younger kids and older kids because they've been in a mixed group their whole life. So there's benefits to everything. There's also a lot of benefits to being in public school.
I agree.
Like that's not right for every family. Like maybe the parent isn't ready to teach their child. Like not everyone is meant to be a teacher, and that's okay. So I think like public school is right for a lot of people, private school is right for a lot of people, and homeschooling is right for a lot of people, just as long as you're doing it.
yeah, I did private and public. So got the best of both those worlds. Public was a shock to me when I get there in 5th grade. I'm like, you can wear whatever you want to school. What do you mean?
There are some moderations.
There's no uniforms?
Yeah.
When's religious class? We don't have that here.
You don't pray over your lunch? I'm so confused.
So I got it all.
Yeah.
Do you sing the national anthem though? They do sing that.
Which one? There's
Pledge
two now.
allegiance to the flag.
There's two now?
Well,
The
Super
national
Bowl.
anthem, or you saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
They do both.
Yeah, I said
Jose, can you see?
Yeah.
you are talking about maybe going East Coast, West Coast. Now, the education systems, to what I know, are very polar opposites.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference, or how do you maneuver through the educational systems in both sides of the country?
I mean, I haven't lived on the West Coast before, but that is something like, I think also just being more rural and more city, like we're the edge of Florida. We're basically in Alabama. It's the deep South here. So, I mean, some things are done a little bit differently. And it also just kind of depends on the demographics of like the area. So if it's like think about Christmas and how your school does Christmas and holidays and like what all is touched on, like how heavily is like Black History Month represented at your school changes a lot school to school. Is that right or not? No, that's not to be said, but there is a lot of variation. Like the public school experience can change a lot school to school, but also like a lot of it is if you're looking at great schools, you're looking on Zillow, you see in the schools that are in the area and the school has a bad score or something, that doesn't mean that your kid can't go there and be successful. That means that like the way they measured success is probably against a lot of the kids. Because it's mostly that those kind of things are mostly based on test scores. And if you have kids who are coming to you behind, their test scores are going to reflect that. And so if your kid is going to school and they're ready, then they can probably be really successful at a school that might have a lower score. So it's really, there's a lot of outlying things that impact it. So
I've always wondered that. I don't like how the scoring works, where they're like the number one school in the district. Like, is that a lot of test scoring is how they're judging that mostly?
yes, it is.
Didn't even know that.
We probably brought it down pretty low, don't you think?
Who's we?
Our test scores? You weren't a good test taker, I've heard.
Pop quiz? I'm talking about for the book girl in the room, Pink Monkey Notes was a great source as a kid.
I bet you were so good.
Until I read the book, The Hardy Boys.
It's called The Greasers.
One of his favorites.
See, obviously you didn't read the same book.
I always had a bias. And speaking of bias, do you have a hard time as a teacher, or how could you separate as a teacher your own beliefs when you go into the educational system?
I think everyone brings themselves to their jobs. So, I mean, if they're like something that's really important to me is like books, obviously. And so like, that's something I will always spend time on. Like that's something even in a fourth grade classroom, like I'm going to have a read aloud time to that. And so you can like, you're going to bring something that's cool. There's limits. Like I was teaching here during an election year in Florida. And like, that's not something I'm going to discuss with my students, but like we will discuss the Electoral College. Because a lot of them didn't understand what it was because they're kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's things that you should not bring to your classroom or to your job or to those are private things, but there's a lot of stuff.
That's a hot button topic.
We should
nowadays.
talk about it. What should you not take into the classroom or the workforce, no matter where you are?
I mean, politics and religion is the obvious answer. Like this is like, we have separation of church and state. So like you can absolutely be a religious person, but that doesn't, like, that's not something you should be doing really, really obviously. Like we're not teaching Bible stories at school, and that's not usually an issue, but like also you get to bring yourself to the classroom. Like you get to wear your cross necklace because like that's yourself. And so I'm not saying you have to sterilize yourself and bring this like super professional person. Like you get to be a person. Like I get to still be married. Like I'm not going to pretend that I don't have a husband. Like I've never kissed a boy or anything. Like I get to, but I get to model a healthy relationship to my kids.
Of course.
Like there's so many cool things about your life that you can share and bring to your work. But there's also things that like, don't borrow trouble. Like don't start something that doesn't need to be messed with. Like
if you feel like you're forcing a belief of something on a kid, it's like you probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
you definitely shouldn't be doing that at school. No, I mean unless you're forcing a belief about like a factual math problem, like maybe that's something.
2 is 4. I think it's 5.
I'm
Mrs.
so
Webster.
sorry, but we're gonna have to argue about this.
If you check my dictionary that I made, the Webster's dictionary.
Yes, Devon Webster here.
That's right.
No, I love it. I think that's really great advice. And all workforces.
Yeah, bring yourself, but don't.
Unless you're in the White House, I guess you have to push politics on people.
Yeah, but even that's still biased. You're pushing your beliefs.
That's very true. This is baloney.
Yeah. Baloney.
Just trying to go to
Children
kindergarten politic talk.
See how he would bring the test scores down.
What'd that mean?
What'd that mean, though? Well, I'm really excited for you and Garrett and your next adventure. I'll be sad because now I want to keep you as my friend.
But she's just gonna take her helicopter and fly out of here.
Me, for sure. I'll be the one doing that.
Have you been in the helicopter with them?
I haven't. That's on my bucket list. That's
You have
something I
not?
hope to. No, you can't just get on a helicopter, y'all. People don't understand
You
this.
can.
But like that. Like I can't
They'll
just
probably
go
kick you
to
off
work with him. I mean, I've like been in helicopters, but you can't just like fly a like a military helicopter because you feel like
Right?
it. Like
Hey,
you
babe,
can't.
bring the Black Hawk over here real quick.
It's so funny because in my mind, that's what I think.
People don't. If you think
Yeah.
a little deeper about it, you're like, that makes sense that you cannot do that.
Yeah.
This is
You have to have
incredibly
one.
expensive equipment and incredibly expensive flight hours and stuff. Of course, you can't just fly around people for no reason at all.
Yeah.
But you
Go
can
right over the roof.
you can rent helicopters and do that. And so that's something we hope to do. Like our kids are getting older, so we're getting more chances to like leave them with family and go on trips and stuff by ourselves. So that's something he got to. He went on a weekend thing with pilots to the Appalachian Mountains in the fall, and it was just stunning. And I was horribly jealous.
Oh my gosh, it's the best. The
I'm like
leaves
at home with our kids at like a Halloween party, and he's like just looking at these mountains. I'm like,
Wow.
maybe next time I get to go, we can rent a plane and do that one.
From the sky must be way better than from the van.
For sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Wow. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, the Appalachian Mountains are gorgeous. That's where I went to college.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Where'd you
Going
go?
out there.
Appalachian State University.
Name
She
of
went
that?
to those.
Sure
Yep.
did. Yep. No.
Cool.
See.
Anything else you want to cover today?
Advice on topics, anything that we haven't covered that you want to touch base on that you think
Touch base on.
your audience would like to know?
My audience. Your audience.
The people, the women, the
People listening.
mothers, the teachers.
Anything to empower moms with kids that are just stuck and they can't make friends and they don't know what to do with
Yeah, what if
school or
you're a
reading?
new military spouse and you're in a town? How do you make friends? Join a book club?
I mean, start a book club. I mean, the first thing I guess advice is that like there's phases in life, and so like maybe you're in a hard phase right now, like but it's not an always thing. So, like maybe you just move somewhere and the phase you're in sucks, and that's okay. Like some phases aren't great. But again, like making friends is just putting yourself out there and like asking questions and getting contact information and following up and making plans and putting in the time. So it's people think a lot harder about it. And also sometimes like some people aren't open to friendship, and that doesn't mean that they don't like you. That means they're full, like there's only so much time you have. Like if you're maintaining a bunch of long distance relationships, like I have a couple of long distance friends, and that takes time too. So like they might not have time for a bunch of new friends, and that's okay. Like just keep moving along. Like you'll find people. It's just, it is going to take some work, and it's okay to be sad about it for a while. Like it's very normal to have this like continuum of emotions about moving, and you're like pouting. You're like, at first when you move somewhere new, you're kind of like, you just said goodbye to your last friends and you're not ready to move on yet.
You're
Like,
mourning the loss of
you
your
really are. You're like, this is horrible. Like maybe I just won't know anyone for 2 years, and then I won't have to say goodbye. Like
Yeah.
that sounds better right now.
Yeah.
And then and just feel that way. Like I think in all things, like you're gonna have to feel the feelings for them to move on.
It's like having a dog that passes and then it ruins they're so sad. You're like, I'm never getting another dog because I don't want to feel this way again. And then like a year later, we get a dog.
You're ready.
Yeah.
Start again.
Because
Or
you
like-
felt the feelings. You felt like you grieved something. And that's something a lot of people, I learned recently. Like you can grieve things you never had. You can grieve the life not lived. And that's something that has been really interesting for me to ponder, is like thinking about that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I actually like that's a gold nugget right there.
As a young mom, that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Like for the 20s that I didn't have, like I can grieve that. Like I can be sad that I didn't get to like have the discover yourself 20s that a lot of people and like a lot of my friends have had. And that doesn't mean I don't want the life I have, but I chose something and I didn't get something else. And that's that, like you can feel about that. That's okay. It doesn't mean you don't like your life. It doesn't mean you regret things. It just means like there's something else that I'm never going to have, and that's sad.
Yeah, it can be sad.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important too. and a part that people don't really talk about.
Yeah.
So thank you for shining light. We do have our niece Frankie in the house who is producing. Her goal is to be a producer. And so Frankie, I'm going to turn it to you for just a second. You're homeschool. You're in the presence of a very intuitive and incredible minded teacher. Do you have any questions for her?
Do you like homeschooling, and do you wish that or is there a part of you that wishes you went to regular school?
I actually was just talking to my mom about this last night. Like, I really like being homeschooled, but I feel like all good friends happen in school. And I said, my mom has two really good friends. And I said, where did you meet them? And I said, where did you meet so-and-so? And she's just like, school. I said, where did you meet this person? She's just like, school. Mm-hmm. And they're really good friends to her. And I feel like we moved from California, and I had a really good friend there. And now she still lives in California, and I don't have any friends here yet. And my brother found a best friend right when we got here. So, like,
that's not fair. He cheated.
Yeah. So you can understand when Devon's talking about mourning your friends and having to go through that space. And yeah, totally understandable. Do you have any questions for her about reading? Because you're an excellent reader. Do you have any questions for her on how to advance your reading skills, or any books, maybe book recommendations? Or
I'm trying to get back into like reading a lot, because like I used to do it a lot, like, because before I was just like, reading is boring, I don't want to do that. And then like I got into it, and then I liked it, and then I just didn't read for a while, and then my mom started paying me to read a book. So then I was just like, oh, this is fun now. And then I stopped, and I just like don't really do it that much anymore. I'm trying to get into it. I'm reading a book right now, but I don't do it every day. I try and do it every day when I wake up, just so like it's done.
It's good to have it as part of your daily life. I think that's how people get more reading in, is if it's part of like your daily stuff. So if you read while you're eating breakfast or something. So I think you're on the right path, and just whatever books you liked in the past. If you're thinking the problem is like time, then pick a regular time to be more of a reader. But if you're thinking the problem is like you're not reading the right books, think about the books you really liked, and try and find the comparisons between them. Do you like them because like the character is the same age as you and is a girl? Do you like them because there's magic involved? Do you like them because they're scary or exciting or set in the past? And if you can find a pattern, that can help you find more books that are the style that you like. And it's way easier to read when you know what you like to read, because it's more fun to read books that you like.
Yeah. Well, I actually asked my mom to get me like a book like because I try and be more nice to my brother. It's really hard to do it because
he's your brother, and his job is to bother you. Mm-hmm. I know. There's a little brother who lives at my house, and he's very good at his job of bothering his brother.
So I told my mom to like get me like, I think she called it like a self-help book, basically. Mm-hmm. And I said like how to like help me like understand how to like not like, you know, like yell at him or whatever, like
not react.
Other emotional options.
React, yeah. So like it's really hard to do that because like they react like that to you.
Yeah.
It is hard for adults too. That's a good point, Devon.
Yeah, it's hard for adults too, I think. So it sounds like you want to read about things you're interested in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, makes sense. I feel like you are kind of looking at parenting books ahead of the time. I feel like that's where you might find your answers. It's not necessarily like not something focused at siblings, but something focused at parenting. So maybe you'll have to dip your toe into some parenting books to get some of that information.
She has 3 siblings, and they're always...
Are they younger than you?
She helps.
I'm the oldest.
Yeah, so she's the second mother in the house.
Maybe a parenting book's the move.
Maybe, yeah.
I like Hunt, Gather, Parent. I thought that one was really interesting, but I don't know what reading level it's written at. I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
Hunt, Gather, Parent. So
it's like Eat, Pray, Love, but the parenting version. Ooh. She's like living in different countries and cultures and like learning about like parenting in different cultures and some takeaways there. But it's also it's not directed at the sister, so it'll all be a little skewed for you.
Yeah.
There's one book called Rules, and I know that one is a sister, but I think her brother has like special needs, or her sister has special needs or something. But that one I know is a sibling relationship. It's called Rules. That one's really popular.
There you go.
Might be good to look
A
into
couple
that
to look into for you, Frankie.
Yeah. My mom and dad have some, or actually, they have a book like that. I think it's called The Strong-Willed Child.
Yep.
And like it's for like helping with kids who like are like crazy and like
That one's a book you either love or you hate. That one is. I know the one you're talking about.
That's your crazy. You talking about RJ?
yeah, like basically like RJ. I don't know how
That's
you
a
mean
book you
it.
love or you hate. The intro to that book is real spicy.
Really?
Is it?
It's very intense. I got it. I read the first chapter. I'm like, this ain't it.
I'm gonna close this one up.
This one's going back to Amazon.
Yeah,
that wasn't for
my
me.
mom read it. And she's trying to get my dad to read it, but he's reading another book right now.
Siblings Without Rivalry is another good parenting book that is about siblings, but it's written for the parents. But perhaps that's one.
I feel like they don't make any books like that for siblings. They make it more for parenting.
Hey, well, maybe there's an opportunity for you to write one.
That's right. Maybe you take notes every day on what RJ does to you and how it makes you feel.
Yeah, and then reflect back on it in maybe
In
a
10
few
years on how
years.
to do it.
Yeah, and then you'll have a journal to utilize for those experiences, and then you can help siblings. If it doesn't exist, you can make it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the whole reason why RJ's being a stinker and vice versa, because you're supposed to teach other kids, and you write a kid's book where they can understand it.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Cool. Like
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. All right.
my mom has always wanted to write a book.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do it together.
Oh, that would be so beautiful. You guys could each take a chapter. You could do it from a kid's perspective, and she could do it from a parent's perspective to the kid. Yeah. And then maybe there's a way that Devon can loop in some educational stuff for y'all
You
too.
can cheer for me from afar.
Please don't leave us.
Y'all got
It'll
it.
go. It'll go in
Y'all got
the.
this.
If it's good enough, it'll make it in the book club. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. See, you maybe had a huge impact on somebody who's going to change the sibling youth.
Be super cool.
It'd be really cool. All right.
All right.
It's been an honor. Thank
for
you.
having me.
Of course.
Thank you for doing your first podcast. You did great.
Thanks. I wonder how many times I said like.
Oh, girl. Come
Probably
on
like
now.
One or two. Once
Just for a drinking game, we'd all be on the floor right now. It's been really fun and very enlightening to have you on and to talk to us about the education system and what parents can do and to not lose themselves in the stump. It's very empowering, and we really appreciate your insight today. And
Thank you.
we look forward to following your journey wherever you end up on the East Coast or West Coast. And
We'll
if
see.
people want to follow you, or if they have questions,
Questions.
how can they reach you?
I don't have social media. I quit it a couple years ago. I couldn't balance it with like, it's obviously social media is like meant to draw you in. And I couldn't like, I was not happy with my usage of it. So I quit Instagram. I have Facebook still, but I'm not active on it. I don't even have my password. Garrett has it. So I can log in if I need something, but otherwise I can't just waste time scrolling because I felt horrible afterwards. I felt like it just made me grumpy and like mad at myself. So I quit it.
I think that's the healthiest thing.
It was
that anyone
hard.
said in this room.
Yeah.
Quit social media.
It was hard. I mean, it's a choice you make. Like you do miss out on some things. People think you're a little weird, but
Oh, I love it.
I
Social
read-
media, or you love getting out of it?
I love that she's out. I love that she took that step.
That's how I read so many books, is that like the time that most people spend scrolling on social media, like I would be reading something then. So it's just like I feel terrible about like, oh, I've wasted X amount of time. Like, what have I accomplished scrolling? But I'm like, oh, yeah, I accomplished chapters. Like,
Yeah.
I'll take that. It's still leisure. It's not like necessarily productive, but it feels a lot better for
You're
me.
scrolling through fantasy and through a different realm of socials.
Yeah,
right?
it's just
Internal.
It's really different, and that's working. I'm trying to kick my YouTube Shorts habit.
Oof, good
'Cause,
luck.
That's the new one.
I didn't know it was there for such a long time.
You don't click that button in the middle. Now you're just going to be scrolling up. Same thing.
If you look at my phone, I don't have YouTube on my phone. My phone is full of like there's nothing fun to do on my phone. Like there is no like I don't have like so. But my
YouTube is
iPad,
YouTube's
Yeah.
the best.
YouTube is, but the algorithm can really put some great things in front of you.
and that's the thing is I'm never gonna say like everyone should quit it because I learned a ton of like parenting activities and like some parenting like tips and stuff. Like
Of course.
there's a lot of things to learn there. It just depends on like if it is this giving you more than it's taking away. And I got to a point where I'm like, I know plenty of activities to do with my kids. Like I can find things on Pinterest and I don't struggle as much with like the scrolling and the constant usage of that. Like I don't need to be here anymore. But
Social media, if you go to it with like an intention, like intentionally using it to get what you need, it's one thing, but it is so easy to get lost. And out of nowhere, you're like, why did I open this app again? And
do
now
I-
it's been
like,
20 minutes.
And maybe like you went there to take a break. Like maybe you did go there with an intention. When you leave, do you feel more relaxed or not? Because that's one thing is like I would notice, like I would be like, I need a break, like I need to check out, like I just had a play date with 4 kids at my house, like I need to chill.
Yeah.
Do I feel better after this? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then like that you need to find a different thing. And I think that like people aren't asking themselves that question enough. Is like, is this serving the purpose I went to it for? Like, did I come here for information to feel better?
Yeah.
Did I find it? Do I feel better? Do I feel panicked and overwhelmed? Like, what did I get out of this? If it's not what you sought, you need to go somewhere else.
Maybe shove your face in a book.
Maybe
Or a box of donuts. I mean,
maybe
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
See, for us, it's like we have to post for businesses or do something marketing wise.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's like you'll forget what you were doing there.
Did you go there to post something and then all of a sudden,
And then
like,
you're like,
20
I haven't-
minutes
Yeah.
later, you're like,
You
did
close-
I do that?
Yeah.
You close the app and you've moved on and you're like, I still have to post. I'm like, oh my God, I just spent a half hour on social media and I didn't even do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But for us, there's a lot of research and it's constantly changing and constantly evolving. And so to keep up with that, I can imagine it's very overwhelming for the average person. But for us, as like a business, it's like, if you're not on it and you don't know what the trends are, you miss it. And so we teach people how to stay up on the trend. So we have to, I mean, we're just constantly.
What's funny though is the
exhausting.
algorithm will tell you now, like if
Yeah.
you spent it on the proper things. Like if
Yeah.
we're supposed to be all media, but you go to your explore page and like it'll tell you what you've been actually looking at. You're like,
Yeah.
it's nothing to what I'm supposed to be looking at. And like clearly I have been scrolling and now
Yes.
I'm watching like puppy videos. I'm like, why are those even there?
We get sucked in and we understand it. So I can imagine like it is. And like you said, when sometimes I get off of there, I didn't accomplish anything I went on there to do originally.
Especially stay-at-home parents.
Oh,
It's a
man.
really quick, it's like,
a
because
time
you're,
warp.
well, and it's also like you're looking for adults. Like you're home with kids all day and like you're seeking out adult contact somehow like that. And that's not uncommon. And so like, and so you can be like lost to your kids. Like and like you get to take breaks. I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying you have to be present 24/7. That's unattainable. But like, that's also, it's a common like, addiction seems like a strong word, but
No, it is. It's very,
It's an addiction.
it's
It's
a very
built.
appropriate word.
It's built for that reason. So
Yeah. I know. I wonder where
we
we'll
don't
be.
look at it that way. You know, people don't look at it with the apprehension I think they should.
we have friends that are influential and have a lot of followers, but you can't have a conversation with them like this half the time. And it's like, hello,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Oh, my bad. And then 10 seconds later, they're back. And it's like,
People don't even realize just this. Even when you're on a commercial break on TV, I know commercials, this is archaic, but we still have commercials
Yeah.
sometimes. And we're bored during a commercial. So we just pick up our phone out of habit.
And like, just if the people in your life are willing to call you on that, like that's really helpful. Is being like, hey, I like, if you talk ahead of time, like, I want to use my phone less, then like you're gonna have to help each other. Like you don't, like, dual screening doesn't need to happen.
Right.
Like
know.
you don't need to
Screen
be
on
dual
screen on
screening.
screen.
Like you don't need to be like on your phone and watching TV. Like you don't need to do that. So it's
except
like,
for you people watching this, make sure you subscribe and stay on this thing.
But it's so triggering when someone calls you out because that addiction part comes in. You're like, I don't have a problem.
because you feel shame about
have
it.
a problem.
You feel shame about like maybe there's something to look into there.
Well, bringing it full circle, when you are scrolling and you see those funny like couple ones, it's like the second the wife gets off her phone after being on it for a half hour, she puts it down, sees the husband on it. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you on your phone all the time? Just because she
Guilty.
stopped and then
Yeah.
she notices
Yeah.
the other person.
Hey,
I'm
I've
like, it's
moved
time
on.
for
I'm ready to do something else, and you're not immediately
exactly.
ready. Like,
Yeah.
the
That's
problem.
so true.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to join your book club or if they want to reach out, do you have an email that we can link to the bottom of this? Or are you open to that? Or do you want to just offer insight and
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. Take your nuggets from the podcast, join a book club, get out there, make friends.
Yeah.
It's like,
be a better person? Yeah.
That's a bigger story.
I have one last question. Since the podcast is called The Shifting Focus, what point in your life did you feel like you had to shift your focus and where it brought you to where you are today?
I mean, I think like the evolution of like my family. So like becoming a wife, like shifting where I lived, like moving to be with my husband, then choosing to be a mother for our kids and shifting that focus from being a teacher to being a stay-at-home a stay-at-home parent. And then now that our kids are in school, like I can't go back to, I'm not ready for a full-time teaching position. So like I had to see like what else can I do? And it's like I have always viewed myself as a teacher. And so finding a new career, or like, and not a career, like finding a new job was a shift for me. And just becoming more okay with the military being in charge of where we live. And that's been an evolution. I think I'm there now, but that's been a thing, is just kind of taking what comes to us as a person who like has a teacher mentality, like likes to be in charge of things. Like that has been a shift of like, life is going to come to you, and like, you got to take what you get. And in the military, it's called bloom where you're planted.
Bloom where you're planted.
Yeah. So
that tattoo has another meaning, doesn't it?
yeah, and that one can be a bit dismissive, but like it's true. Like you can thrive in a lot of ways and in a lot of places. And so I think that's a mentality, is like, maybe this isn't exactly how I picture things, but like the life I have is beautiful. So
maybe grieving, you go back to that grieving point of having to release what you thought your life was going to be and then where it is today, and just finding the beauty in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we always are making plans, and things change and shifting as we go along. But I think that I wouldn't have been defined as a child as like a flexible person. I think stubborn would be what came out before that. And I think that as I get older, like seeing that, like I enjoy kind of meeting these new aspects of myself. Like I'll find myself in my 30s, I suppose. I missed my 20s to do that.
Good.
Love it.
Making humans.
Releasing control and just going with the flow sometimes, huh?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, a lot of teachers struggle with that. So
Yeah. There's a curriculum. Why are you guys not listening? Get back here.
Again, the grade A student over here.
No, that's not me. I was always afraid of being in trouble. Always. Opposite of RJ.
Yeah, opposite.
her face, man.
All right.
I
Well,
know.
appreciate you coming by.
Thank
This was
you.
fun.
This
was
was
great.
really
Great
fun.
conversation.
I agree. It's been really great having you on.
All right.
Yep.
Well, appreciate
you
it.
so much,
See y'all
Devon.
next time.
All right. Peace out.